What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? A very good evening to and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
A combined mechanism for food security and nutrition in Sri Lanka. Asian champions return to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka accused of economic crimes at UNHRC. Ali Sabri rejects the allegations. Health professionals warn of worsening medicine shortage.
ඖෂධ ලේඛනයේ පිටු 150-200ක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේකේ සියල්ලම වගේ තියෙන්නේ ඔබට පේනවා ඇති බිඳුව තමයි තියෙන්නේ.
සමහර ඖෂධ වර්ග ගෙන්වීම හිතාමතාම ප්‍රමාද කිරීමක් අපි සමහර තැන්වලදී දකිනවා.
අදත් මම හිතන්නේ මේ මට ඇත්තටම සංඛ්‍යාව මට අද අපිට එහෙම තාම එහෙම රැස්වීමක් අද තියාගන්න හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ. මම හිතන්නේ
Sri Lanka to review public service recruitment process. Nightlife in Macau in Manila. Diana reveals her plans to boost revenue. Indigenous leader appeals for the release of detained student activists.
යුද්ධයට මන්දු කරපු නීති තමයි මේ අත්තන්ට පාවිච්චි කරන මන්දු කරලා.
Starting off with news here at home, the multi-sector mechanism to empower rural economic revitalization centers to ensure food security and nutrition was initiated under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe today.
The relevant mechanism has been implemented through 7 committees, while the National Food Security and Nutrition Council will function under the chairmanship of the President. The National Combined Mechanism on Food Security and Nutrition will function under the chairmanship of the President's Secretary, whereas the Technical Advisory Committee on Food Security and Nutrition will be chaired by the Prime Minister's Secretary. The Provincial Combined Mechanism on Food Security and Nutrition will function under the chairmanship of the Provincial Governors, while the District Combined Mechanism on Food Security and Nutrition will be chaired by the District Secretaries. The Combined Regional Mechanism on Food Security and Nutrition is to be implemented under the chairmanship of the Divisional Secretaries. Rural Economic Revitalization Centers will comprise Gram Niladari, Development Officer, Agriculture Research and Production Assistant, Samurdhi Niyamaka Niladari, Midwife Principal of the closest school and 2 representatives of the local government institution. The government initiated this program with the view of achieving dual objectives of ensuring that no citizen of the country should starve due to lack of food and no child should be a victim of malnutrition.
The Asian champions of cricket and netball returned to Sri Lanka this morning, and they were welcomed by their fans all the way from the airport to Colombo.
6-time Asian netball champions, the Sri Lankan netball team led by Gayanjali Amaravansha returned to Sri Lanka this morning and were greeted by a large number of sports fans and officials.
We participated in this tournament as the champions of 2018, so we also had that pressure, but because we played together as a team, we could share that pressure together as a team and play well. Our only aim is to get selected for Commonwealth Games, so for that we need good training and a good plan.
The 6-time Asia Cup champions Sri Lanka also returned to the country earlier this morning to a grand welcome ceremony at the Bandaranaike International Airport.
This is a sign of good things to come for Sri Lanka cricket. I believe what is unique is the fact that we managed to do everything necessary during the game. I was greatly supported by the selectors and the coaching staff. I doubt if anyone believed this Sri Lanka team can reach this level. The young team is well talented, and when we fine-tune our talents, we can achieve more.
The Asian champions of cricket and netball were escorted from Colombo from the BIA in 2 open-air buses surrounded by a celebratory motorcade, while sports fans were seen lined up to extend their wishes. The motorcade proceeded to Colombo from Sidua, Jaila and many other areas. The Sri Lanka netball team proceeded to Torrington, while Sri Lanka cricket team proceeded to the SLC premises in Colombo.
And right now they are doing exceptional. The hard work the boys are doing is really good.
How about the performance in this Asia Cup?
Especially the fielding. I would would like to note it down that fielding has been really good.
I just think this win means so much to the country right now, and we are, as you can see, everyone's gathered here, and we're so excited. It runs in our blood. I think they played exceptionally well, and we're so happy. Congratulations to both our cricket and netball teams.
Actually, I'm very proud to say I'm a Sri Lankan because of the cricket.
We have more news in store for you, but first a quick commercial break. Stay tuned.
Newsfirst, main sponsor.
Anka ege arakshita iti gini petti. Surya gini petti.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Eslon Insight. Eslon ජීවයයි ජලය ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back. Sri Lanka is facing an allegation on economic crimes for the very first time at the United Nations Human Rights Council.
The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights at the United Nations, in a report to the UN Human Rights Council, noted that Sri Lanka's new government should embark on a national dialogue to advance human rights and reconciliation, calling for accountability and deeper institutional reforms to prevent a recurrence of past violations. It added that for sustainable improvements to take place, however, it is vital to recognize and address the underlying factors which have contributed to the economic crisis, including embedded impunity for past and present human rights violations, economic crimes and endemic corruption. This is in fact the first time that a UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has referred to economic crimes in a report on Sri Lanka. In response to the report, Sri Lankan Foreign Minister, President's Council Ali Sabri said that the High Commissioner's report makes extensive reference to economic crimes.
It is observed that the High Commissioner's report makes extensive reference to economic crimes. Apart from the ambiguity of the term, it is a matter of concern that such reference exceeds the mandate of the OHCHR. In this context, we recall the paramount importance of adhering to UNGA Resolution 60/251, 48/141 and the IB package.
Sri Lanka and other delegations raised the question of economic crimes. The Human Rights Council, in its thematic resolutions, has focused on the linkages between corruption and human rights, and the human rights treaty bodies have also paid increasing attention to these issues. The Sri Lanka situation is an important illustration of how human rights and corruption concerns intersect. While traditionally we have focused on accountability for human rights violations, the broad demands from Sri Lankans today is for accountability for corruption, the abuse of power and economic crimes that have impacted human rights. And we therefore welcome the commitments made by the government to tackle corruption. Sustainable recovery, development and peace can only be achieved if there is an end to impunity and the deep institutional reforms that can prevent the recurrence of violations from the past. Advancing the devolution of political authority is also integral to reconciliation, as noted by India and also in past.
The Sri Lankan government continues to maintain the position that it will not accept UNHRC resolution.
Sri Lankan Foreign Minister, President's Council Ali Sabri pressed that the delegation would reject Resolution 46/1 because it did not fit within the working framework of the Sri Lankan Constitution.
යහපාලන රජයේ කාලේ එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ මානවකම් කවුන්සිලයෙන් ගෙනාව යෝජනාවට ශ්‍රී ලංකාව විදිහට සමාන උග්‍රහයක් දැක්වුවා. එතනත් බාහිර යාන්ත්‍රණයක් පිළිබඳව අදහස් තිබ්බා. ඒකට මේ වෙද්දී අපි රජ්‍ය විදිහට තීරණය කළා තියෙනවා මේකට විරුද්ධ වීමට. එතකොට ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ අදහසත් මේකමද මොකද යහපාලන රජය හුවා හිටපු අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයා.
බොහොම පැහැදිලිවම ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේත් රජයේ මතයත් එයයි.
The President and the government maintain the same position. An external mechanism is against the constitutional framework. We believe that the issue in Sri Lanka must be solved via a domestic mechanism that is in line with the provisions of the constitution. That is the position conveyed by the Foreign Minister to the United Nations Human Rights Session.
ජනාධිපතිතුමන් රජයත් සිටින්නේ ඒ මතය තමයි විදේශ කටයුතු අමාත්‍ය අලි සබ්‍රමතුමා විසින් මෙම සැසිවාරයට ජිනීවාදී ඉදිරිපත් කරනු ලබන්නේ.
Many countries, including the United States of America, Japan, European Union, UK, New Zealand, called for a proper mechanism to explore the accountability process in Sri Lanka and also called for the amendment of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. India once again called for the full implementation of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. China, North Korea, Turkey, Venezuela, Iran and Russia, among other countries, backed Sri Lanka's position.
Here's a look at the countries that supported the report of the UN Human Rights Commission and the countries that backed Sri Lanka's position.
Countries that supported Sri Lanka's position: the Russian Federation, People's Republic of China, Uganda, the Philippines, Iran, Turkey, Bolivia, Cambodia, Lebanon, Japan, Maldives, Ethiopia, Venezuela, Vietnam, Nigeria, Syria, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Burundi, Zimbabwe, Yemen and Cameroon. The countries that supported the OHCHR report are the European Union, Canada, United States of America, India, New Zealand, Nigeria, France and Montenegro. Other countries that commented at the UNHRC session are the Middle East, Thailand, Kenya, Sudan, Kazakhstan and Belarus.
Here are some of the comments made by the member states to the United Nations Human Rights Commission.
The EU condemns the unwarranted use of force against peaceful demonstrators and calls upon Sri Lanka to suspend the Prevention of Terrorism Act until it is in full compliance with international human rights law and standards, and calls for accountability and immediate acts to end impunity.
Mr. President, we would assert that the promotion of human rights is a joint responsibility which requires working together and positive cooperation in accordance with international human rights law and international humanitarian law.
We reiterate our position to oppose and reject country-specific initiatives and resolutions that are confrontational and do not have the consent of the country concerned. The resolution on Sri Lanka has set a dangerous precedent by requiring the OHR to take on the role of the collecting criminal evidence with a view to future prosecution, a mandate that was never conferred on OHR by any subsequent resolution of the General Assembly.
Japan acknowledges the amendment to the Prevention of Terrorism Act as an important initial step and encourages Sri Lanka to have further efforts to impose moratorium on the PTA, enact comprehensive counter-terrorism legislation, and establish a transitional justice mechanism, including a Truth and Reconciliation Committee.
There is no reason for Sri Lanka to be on the agenda of this Council. Venezuela rejects interference in the internal procedures experienced in by Sri Lanka, moving towards full national reconciliation once and for all. We trust in the economic swift recovery of the country with the efforts of the countries to promote the human rights of all of its people.
We have no desire to dramatize the situation of human rights in Sri Lanka, the government of which has shown its willingness to establish mutually respectful cooperation with international human rights mechanisms. In this context, we continue to take a negative view of Resolution 46/1, which was adopted without the consent of Sri Lanka.
New Zealand agrees that accountability measures are critical for enduring peace and prosperity. We urge Sri Lanka to work with the High Commissioner and other partners to strengthen domestic accountability measures, including for historic human rights violations.
The Council should avoid politicization and refrain from political prejudice toward any country. These mechanisms should not be misused for the political goals of a specific group of countries against developing nations.
Considering the current social and economic challenges, we believe that Sri Lanka should be given time to fulfill its obligations during these difficult times. We think that priority should be given to mobilizing international efforts to provide humanitarian aid to the people of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka is not the only country that is being discussed at the 51st session of the United Nations Human Rights Council. Report of the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar and the report of the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Afghanistan are also being taken up. Moreover, reports on working groups on the right to development, safety of journalists and the issue of impunity, safe drinking water and sanitation of indigenous people, contemporary forms of slavery, including its causes and consequences, enjoyment of all human rights by older people, are among others being discussed at the UNHRC.
Meanwhile, multiple factions have raised alarm over Sri Lanka's worsening medicine shortage. However, authorities claim that the situation is being managed.
The chairman of the Professional Forum of Physicians on Medical and Civil Rights, Dr. Chamal Sanjeeva, speaking on TV1's Jatika Mehevara program, elaborated on the medicines and medical supply status.
If you look at the data and storages of the medicine supply unit, a considerable amount of medicines indicate as 0. There are 150 to 200 pages in the medicine document. In almost all these pages, 0 is indicated. I showed you the official report of the National Medicine Storage Supply Units. It was revealed in the COPE committee that we cannot identify which medicines are having shortages. The computer system of the medicine supply unit was established by the Health Ministry by spending 700 million to save the lives of people by providing information on the number of medicines available in the storage of every district, operating properly, and what purpose does it serve.
කුමන පළාත්වල රෝහල් පද්ධතිය ඇතුළේ තියෙනවද කියලා දැනගන්න බැරි නම් ඒ ඖෂධ පද්ධතියෙන් ඒ තොරතුරු පද්ධතියෙන් රටේ ජනතාවට කිසිදු ප්‍රයෝජනයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Even though we can purchase medicine under the Indian credit line until the 31st of December, it takes 11 months for the Health Ministry to receive the stock of medicine after it places the order. A low number of stocks are to be received, but the prevailing stocks are coming to an end. The authorities must interfere and do something about this.
60 varieties of essential medicines are not available. We can't do 40% of lab tests. Patients' surgeries cannot be done. There is 25 billion worth of debt. At a time like this, a state minister has been introduced. What is the solution they are giving to the health sector of the country?
We see an intentional delay in bringing in certain drugs. We see certain things being done to sell the medicines for a higher price after portraying a medicine shortage. It is the funds of the public that are being wasted here. We must not let them loot the money of the people and the government.
The Ministry of Health convened a media briefing to address the allegations levelled.
Only 20 varieties of medicine are being produced locally. The remaining 80% of the drugs are imported. You are all aware of the dollar crisis in the country. This affected the suppliers to a certain extent. The State Pharmaceutical Corporation faces a similar issue when importing raw materials needed to manufacture medicines locally. Therefore, the process is disrupted. We call the factions that supply medicine directly to us as local suppliers. They also face a similar problem. This issue does not prevail for a normal time period. It looks like a small issue. We are disheartened at a time as we are unable to fulfill what needs to be done.
There are more than 10,000 drugs and medical supplies. It is a very volatile situation. What is there today is not there tomorrow. Therefore, I cannot give you the numbers.
හොඳ විදියට අපි මේක පවත්වාගෙන යන්න ඕනේ කියලා ඒ නිසා මේ සංඛ්‍යාව එකන එකක්වත් අපි ඊයේටත් එක්ක අපිට අද ආපහු වැඩ කරන්න බැරි වෙනවා. ඒතකොට වයිතුමේ දවස් ගාන මොනිටර් කිරීමක් සිදු වෙනවද අද දවසේදී නිශ්චිත ප්‍රමාණයක් ලංකාවේ මේ මොකක් හරි කියන ඕනෙම වෙලාවක අපි ඇත්තටම එදාට තියෙන අලුත්ම දත්ත අරගෙන අපි එන්න බැඳිලා ඉන්නවා ඇත්තට. ඒතකොට වයිතුමේ අද දවසේදී ඖෂධ කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් අදත් මම හිතන්නේ මේ මට ඇත්තටම සංඛ්‍යාව මට අද අපිට එහෙම තාම එහෙම රැස්වීමක් අද තියාගන්න හම්බුනේ නැහැ. මම හිතන්නේ
We were unable to hold a meeting regarding that today. We have the drugs that we need, but there are considerable amount of drugs which are classified as essentials that are lacking.
Sri Lanka's cabinet of ministers approved the use of $100 million from the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank that was allocated for various other projects for the procurement of essential medicines and medical supplies.
The cabinet of ministers has approved allocating $100 million for the health ministry to procure essential medicines and supplies. The money is from the Colombo Urban Regeneration Project.
News First with the people.
Litrogas today responded to allegation raised against the company with regard to the procurement of gas.
Amid a looming pharmaceutical crisis, Litro today responded to allegations regarding gas deals. There are several factors that the World Bank looks at in providing financial assistance from the World Bank, and we cannot obtain its assistance without fulfilling them. No matter how poor our country is, no matter if there is a financial crisis, we cannot get that money without complying with the standards and methods of the World Bank. Recently, a team of 7 from the World Bank arrived and we had a progress review meeting with them. So how can the World Bank be challenged? It is wrong to challenge that the World Bank funds were misused, so we reject it. This is a blatant lie and a false statement. The reason for the Litro's chairman reaction was a revelation made by the MP Professor Charita Herath recently.
gas සම්බන්ධව ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් අපේ රටේ ඇති වුණා. මේ අම්මලා තාත්තලා අපිට
A major issue regarding gas arose in this country and people were on roads blaming us. Every citizen suffered for 8 months without gas, but no one knows the reason behind this. This was done by 2 groups and giving a contract to one company to bring gas. But the next chairman who was appointed stopped it, which created tension between the 2 gas companies. This dispute went on to extend that the people of this country had to suffer for 8 months without gas on the streets. How did this end? This ended when the World Bank gave $70 million to the government to bring this gas. Our government also put in another $20 million and $90 million was spent to bring gas. We were to receive a metric ton of gas for $96, but they fronted a new person and an agreement was made with that company to buy it for $129. The group in our country were at the point of wasting the aid given by the World Bank when we were at a crisis. That's why we can't talk much about this today, because the gas is arriving, because the people of our country need gas. But 1,300 million rupees were removed from this transaction, showing the people's interest. 1,300 million rupees is 1.3 billion. I am asking the media today, who took this money? Who was this divided? The innocent people of this country do not know the answer for these.
Sri Lanka's Court of Appeal said that the decision to issue summons on State Minister Sanat Nishantha with respect to the petitions filed alleging that he committed contempt of court will be announced on the 29th of September 2022.
The 2 petitions were filed alleging that Sanat Nishantha made defamatory comments to the officials of the Attorney General's Department, the Sri Lanka Bar Association and the magistrates during a press conference held at the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Party headquarters on the 23rd of August. The petitions filed by attorneys at law Priyalal Sirisena and Vijitha Kumara were taken up for consideration by the Court of Appeal judges Nisanka Bandula Karnaratna and R. Guru Singha. Attorney at law Upul Jayasundara appearing for attorney at law Priyala Sirisena, said it is essential to ensure the respect of the court is maintained to protect the rule of law. President's Counsel Salia Pires, appearing for Vijitha Kumara, said parliamentarian Sanath Nishanta's statement had an influence on the magistrates. The President's Counsel points out, as MP Sanath Nishanta in his statement said that the law is not being implemented in the country, he is undermining the powers of the judiciary. He also said that parliamentarian Sanath Nishanta's statement is derogatory towards the trust the people has on the judiciary. The Court of Appeal informed that the decision on the issuance of the summons will be announced on the 29th. It also announced that orders on interim requests, including the imposition of a travel ban, will also be announced on that day. Meanwhile, the State Minister for Tourism, Diana Gamage, says that she will create a night economy. People come to visit clubs, eat, drink and have fun in such establishments. Today in our country, we do not see much of it. We also see that there is nothing in Colombo after 10 p.m. There is no place to spend money at. We should create these opportunities. That is nightlife and that is night economy. We need to make this. I hope to do this. Remember, if dollars are not brought to this country, we, the 225, cannot make gas at home. We cannot make fuel. Manor Island can be completely built to be like Macau, which does business only with dollars. There is no rupees. When we were younger, we were frightened by elders about being taken to Manor to sell fish. Is that what should be done? You can generate a huge dollar income from Manor, not limited to drying fish. Nothing is impossible for this country. What we need is ideas. Sri Lanka has decided to review the public service recruitment process. The Department of Government Information said that under the current economic situation, the government has decided to temporarily suspend recruitment for public service. The statement said, quote, "There is a surplus of employees in the public service as a whole due to the direct recruitment of graduates and other categories of employees into the public service from time to time following the approved recruitment procedures as well as under the policy decisions taken by the existing governments," end quote. The statement added that, however, it has been reported that there are vacancies in certain categories.
60,000 graduates were merged with the public service in recent times, and the committee would take the necessary measures to allocate them for various sectors, including education. The cabinet approved to appoint a committee to review this program.
සම්බන්ධයෙන් කැබිනට් තීරණ දැනුම් දීමේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේදී සාකච්ඡාවක් ඇති වුණාද?
තරම සේවක කප්පාදුවක් පිළිබඳව කිසිම සාකච්ඡාවක් ඇති වුණේ නැහැ. නමුත් ඔබ සඳහන් කළ පරිදි සේවක තුලනයන් පිළිබඳව තමයි කතා කරේ.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa alleges that the same group that was in power previously is governing the country again with president they can control.
අගමැති ගියා රට කාපු මුදල් ඇමති ගියා
The Prime Minister is gone. The Finance Minister who ruined the country is gone. The President who destroyed the country is also gone. But to fill the void, they appointed a temporary President who acts as per their orders. There was a time when the Prime Minister was not seen. The Finance Minister was not seen. The Rajapakshas are nowhere to be seen. The ministers who were hiding have now come out. A marvellous act. Those who were hiding are now ministers. The so-called crow sends the letter to the President. He says, here is the list of cabinet ministers and they are to be appointed. Here is a list of state ministers. They are appointed. 134 people in the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna get together and appoint a president and control the president as they want. Did thousands of people come to the streets and fight for this madness, for this scandal?
The leader of the Sri Lankan indigenous community, Uruvarige Vannilatho, made a special appeal seeking the release of Inter-University Students Federation convener Vasantha Mudalige.
Vasantha Mudalige kala kata damana kakula me attanne me gam pujje me parampara pujje kakuli yogga bada pujje ipudum pujje maddoichi kakuli adivasin neveyi mone.
The young man Vasantha Mudalige was born in this village to an indigenous woman. Irrespective of where he comes from, if they speak for justice, that is justice. If those young people have committed a mistake, punishing them is not an issue. But those young people should not be detained for months by subjecting them to mental and physical torture. All the people who joined the struggle, including that young man, did not speak for their personal needs, but on behalf of this entire country. It was through these events that even the president who is in power today got the opportunity to come to power. What I mean is that they should not be detained and punished as a form of revenge. If a mistake has been made, punishments should be given accordingly. The courts will examine the facts and give a fair decision. If they have committed a mistake, the court will punish them. But I say that it is wrong to torture them and punish them like this.
කතා නමන්නේ මෙහෙම තිබාගෙන ඒ ඇත්තන්ව හිරතන මන්දු කරගෙන ඒ ඇත්තන්ට වදපුජ්ජ මන්දු කරලා එහෙම මන්දු කරන එකම හොඳ කොදුයි.
It's time for another commercial break. Stay tuned.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක් මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එකක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජනනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් ළඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න
Biz First.
Sri Lanka's central bank held a treasury bond auction today, and Newsfirst has the details.
Sri Lanka's central bank issued treasury bonds under two separate categories today. The central bank offered 30,000 million rupees worth of treasury bonds with a maturity date of 1st of July 2025 and also offered a separate 45,000 million rupees worth of treasury bonds with a maturity date of 1st of July 2032. However, the central bank had only accepted offers worth 3,704 million rupees for the first category maturing in 2025. But for the second category, it accepted the entire 45,000 million rupees worth of offers. The weighted average yield for the bonds maturing in 2025 was 29.16% and for the bonds maturing in 2032 was 29.96%.
Today is day 9 of the 4th edition of the Divi Savia program supported by LOLC Holdings, seeking to support the most impoverished communities in Sri Lanka. Today the program is carried out centering the Kalutara district.
The program was launched today in the Bulletin Sinhala Divisional Secretariat in the Kalutara district. Essential relief packages were delivered to families in need that were identified in the Kalutara district. Under the Divi Savia program, essential goods are being distributed to low-income families facing serious financial difficulties across Sri Lanka.
The suicide mortality rate in Sri Lanka has increased, and the WHO says that the discrimination is a common source that affects mental health.
WHO was a partner in the first National Mental Health Policy in 2005, and we've continued this to the current policy 2020 to 2030. Nevertheless, more needs to be done in Sri Lanka. The suicide mortality rate in Sri Lanka is 14 per 100,000 population. It's the highest in the WHO Southeast Asia region for 2019. 27% informed that employers in the workplace are the most common source of discrimination against people with mental health. From WHO Sri Lanka Country Office, I reiterate our support to Sri Lanka in achieving the highest standards of mental and physical well-being for its population.
It is unfortunate reality that mental health has been taking a backseat in Sri Lanka healthcare system for a long period. It is rarely, if ever, given priority and hardly talked about. There is no separate allocate budget for mental health in Sri Lanka. The existing Mental Health Act does not adequately reflect the present needs and circumstances regarding the mental health in Sri Lanka. At the same time, there have been many unseen issues and technical difficulties in bringing forward a new Mental Health Act. We are lagging way behind in terms of mental health literacy. Mental health is yet to be incorporated into the educational system. Mental well-being, no. Mental health is not discussed adequately in the school curricula. It is needless to mention that we are navigating through difficult times. financial restraints are already affecting service provision to the patients who are seeking mental health support and care throughout the countries. Therefore, it is important for us as mental health professionals to handle these issues proactively, creating deep awareness and bringing mental health to the forefront. Our vision of the new council is to make Sri Lanka College of Psychiatry the leader in mental health awareness, advocacy and service development with outstanding value for Sri Lanka.
According to the World Health Organization, it is important to pay close attention to the warning signs, which include saying goodbye to close friends and family, saying things such as "no one will miss me when I'm gone," giving away valued possessions. People faced with an emotional crisis mostly require informal and confidential emotional support. A person who has the time to listen does not advise or criticize, but helps the person to come to terms with the situation and feel confident to cope with it.
Every doctor has a personal responsibility to be up to date and to see that his practice is of a certain standard. And without that, you really cannot be a good doctor. You all know that in this country in particular, there is no process of revalidation of keeping up to date, and that is a major flaw in our system. Education continues long after you qualify, and it continues every day. The process of continuous professional development is a formalization of this concept.
The presidential induction of the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists 2022 was held in Colombo last evening. The induction was attended by WHO representative to Sri Lanka Dr. Alaka Singh and Professor Senaka Rajapaksa, Director of Postgraduate Institute of Medicine Colombo, along with many other dignitaries. Dr. Kapila Ranasinghe was inducted as the incoming president of the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, granted approval to appoint Air Vice Marshal Udeni Rajapaksa as the Chief of Staff of the Sri Lanka Air Force with effect from 12th September 2022. Accordingly, Commander of the Air Force, Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana, officially handed over the letter of appointment to Air Vice Marshal Udeni Rajapaksa today.
He executed a night ejection from an aircraft in 1997 while on an operational bombing mission at night, and he has been commended for the great achievement of handling a serious emergency situation while on a combat mission. Air Vice Marshal Rajapaksa holds the appointment of Chairman of Sri Lanka Air Force Athletic Association, and he has been awarded Sri Lanka Air Force colours for tennis in 2010, and he is the only SLAF officer who has won Commander's Cup Eagles Challenge Trophy.
Several employees at the State Engineering Corporation surrounded the chairman's office citing a salary issue. The Slave Island Police told Newsfirst that the issue was resolved and the employees had surrounded the chairman's office stating that their August salary was not paid in full. For tonight, thank you very much for joining us. Do take care, stay safe, and good night.